Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I'm gonna do a quick take apart and tune up on this little guy here. This is the Benchmade Valet 485. So, as I mentioned in a previous video, I actually picked this guy up for a buddy of mine who doesn't have a Benchmade retailer near him and wanted to be able to, get one picked out that was, worth a damn. Because unfortunately, as I've said repeatedly, Benchmade's quality control is just absent. They're not showing up lately. So, I went down to a local store and I picked one up for him after testing 16 of them to find good ones. And, now I'm going to go ahead and tune it up for him because my buddy's got a couple of physical issues that mean that, he's not necessarily... He'd much rather not have to use the thumb stud, for instance, so I want to get it nice and free swinging, and so that's going to kind of guide this guy. If I were setting this guy up for myself, I would probably be a little bit more conservative, but here I might allow a little tiny bit of side-to-side blade play in order to get a really free swinging axis lock. So at the moment, I'm just taking the screws apart. And, God, having this knife for a couple of days, just getting ready to mail it out here, is reminding me of how much I did like this knife. I had one, reviewed it, and ended up selling it, because I got a really good deal on it. And, this was a knife that suffered only by comparison to some of my other options. It is really excellent. Practically speaking, especially once you take the clip off. Oh man, this becomes a whole different beast. This is quite a little fun thing. The clip, like I mentioned in my review, is not necessarily the most beautiful thing. But anyways, I mean, this is a great knife. There's a lot of good here. You can see there's, and I touched on this in my review, but I am really impressed by the fact that the hole here was not only drilled on the presentation, I'm sorry, on the offside, basically, so the presentation side would be even cleaner for right-handed people. That's impressive. Okay, so I've been using a Wiha Torx T6 bit here for the handle screws. Now I'm going to take a bet and say this is going to be a T8. No, maybe T10. T10. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and pop off the pivot screw here. There we go. Benchmade, for all of their various faults at this point in life, is still pretty good about not using Loctite and making their knives disassemblable. I'm not going to go ahead and say easy to disassemble because the axis lock can be a bit of a pain in the ass. But this guy, whoa there, is just fine. So we can see that this is actually built like a typical axis lock in that there is a subframe underneath here that has the two sides of the axis lock. The blade goes between it, and then you got some scales on the outside. So, yeah, there we go. The knife is obviously not terribly dirty because it's not terribly used at all. So, there you go. Well, this is interesting. So, on most axis locks, let me grab my oilet to point with. On most axis locks, there's actually a separate little hole that the Omega spring rests in, like a little perforation right here or something like that. But on the Valet, it looks like the axis lock, the Omega springs here just rest in this little gap there, which is, fine. It's surrounded by this little pocket here, but I don't know, that's a little different. I don't know that I'd noticed that when I took mine apart originally. So, here we go. Gonna go ahead and pull the axis lock off of there. Come on now. Now we just need to convince that off. Perfect. And we have a disassembled knife. There is the washer. And this guy is practically dry in terms of lubrication out of the box, and that may be a part of the reason why the action feels a little suboptimal to me. Although, as I mentioned in my initial video, this was the most optimal out of all of the ones in the store. So, that ain't saying that much. But anyways, looking at the parts here, we got skeletonized internal liners here. This guy, he's either interference fit or stuck soldered in there, but either way, I'm not going to really mess with it. Because this is skeletonized liners, as I usually do, I'm going to put a little bit of your frog lube here, a little goes a long way, into this surface. And that's just going to provide a nice rust protection coating for this steel in case the knife gets wet behind the scale. You know, you don't want anything rusting up. And I happen to know my buddy's in a dry climate as well, so, you know, not a big problem. But, as well, what the heck am I saying? It's freaking 80 degrees, 80% humidity out there. I grew up in the desert, alas, and oh, do I miss it some days. Okay, so that side is now nicely frog lubricated. And put a little bit more on my fingers there off camera. And just slide it on here. And again, I'm just doing my best to coat these surfaces. Probably not needed. Certainly not a bad idea. There we go. And while I got a little bit on my fingers, I'll just hit the blade. The beautiful part about frog lube, of course, is that it is rather completely food safe. So you just can throw it on there without even a second thought. There we go. Perfect. So, and why not hit the clip up? Moving it right along here. The next step is going to be to go ahead and I used a little much over here, so I'm just going to wipe this guy off. Not wiping too hard, but just trying to get a little of the excess off there. Don't want things gumming up the works. Perfect. But okay, there we go. We are frog lubricated. So now I think the only thing that remains to be done is some reassembly with lubrication, and that is the key to the kingdom here. Not that it's a very large kingdom. But okay, this is the proper side. What I'm going to go ahead and do, and I'm going to use 10 weight nano oil here because I do want this swinging freely. There we go. Just going to use the nano oil itself. Actually, just going to do a slight bit. This is a piece of leather that I've treated with some micron diamond paste. And I'm just going to polish this washer just a little tiny bit here. Get everything as smooth as it possibly can be. Just hitting the high surfaces, and you can see that they're now just a little bit shinier around the edges, which is nice. Not giving it too much, because one thing you don't want to do is remove too much material on the washer, such that you end up in a situation where the washer is now thinner than it should be, and you introduce some blade play. So that's why I'm using a little tiny strop here with a little bit of compound at the 1 micron level to do this polish, rather than attempting, you know, on sharpening stones or something like that to actually flatten. But okay, so now my washers are prepared. I'm going to go ahead and drop this washer right on there. Yeah. Just trying to think of the order of operations here. Putting together, as you saw if you watched my, actually this is going to air before that one. Well, I got an assembly of a Griptilian coming up with. Really fought with me a little bit. So, yeah. Little known fact about the channel. Actually, it's probably pretty well known at this point. But a lot of what airs on any given day may have been filmed in, you know, the weeks or maybe even a month or so prior to the airtime. And that's just so that, you know, because I have a pretty inconsistent filming schedule. Some weeks with my work life and my personal life, I don't really have a chance to film much. Other weeks, I can get a couple of things knocked out. Some days, like today, I can take a break from coding and put a little bit of work into a knife. All right. You got to make sure the axis lock is oriented properly, and so for this particular model, it looks like that. So we drop that in there. Oh, you little bugger. There we go. I'm going to see if I can't use, I'm just going to pop the Omega spring back home. Ah, went too low. Come here, Omega spring. Come on now. There we go. So that'll help to hold the axis lock in there a little bit more. Now that I've got this side on, what I'm going to go ahead and do is start slowly putting pieces back together. So now I'm going to use my pivot, and I'm going to drop it on in through here. This has a flat side, so the pivot cannot spin. Make sure the flat side is aligned. There we go. So pivots pop through. While I got the pivot here, I'm going to go ahead, drop this through here. Alrighty. Let's see if I can't move. Oh, did I just lose the... Oh, yes, I did just lose the axis lock spring. You little bugger. Okay, so this is a time when your little oiler can come in handy, especially with the little forked end. What I'm going to try and do is slip that in there. Come on now. In an effort to pop the axis lock spring back into position. Okay. Gonna go ahead and take the blade off here. That'll let me loosen the pivot a little bit, which will give me a little more room to work in here. Now, well, there that went. Omega spring is back in position. I'm gonna see if I can't remake that all real quick before the spring goes back out. Sorry, I'm really trying to make an effort to keep everything I do on camera, but it's real difficult sometimes to avoid the temptation to bring it up in close to the face, and the face is just off camera here. So, there you go. Okay, back to where we started now. Make sure the axis lock does not come off as I slip the blade on here. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of lube on this washer. There we go. Drop that on there. Beautiful. Now, here comes a trick that I honestly don't know if I got in me. What I'm going to try and do let's see here. Whoa there. Yep. Okay. I'm going to go on ahead and take a different tack here because this is just driving me crazy. This, my friends, is why, well, one of many reasons why I would not want to work for Benchmade. In that their knives, taking them apart and putting them back together every damn day would just not be a super pleasant experience for me. So I'm going to use a different strategy here. What I'm going to do is basically adhere the washers to the inside of the liner using a little bit of nano oil. You need to be careful with the amount that you use. You don't want to flood things, but at the same time, you want it to be nice and snug. There we go. See, it's not going anywhere. Now I'm going to try and do the reassembly with everything else taken apart so I have easy access. So, let's see here. Go ahead and pop that spring up over there. Okay. So, I'm going to go ahead and secure that guy. Now, here we go. As you can tell, I don't work on a whole lot of axis locks because generally I don't really care that much for Benchmade stuff these days. Nothing personal against the designs, but quality just ain't there lately. Oh, you little bugger. Don't fight me. I am the human. I use tools. I will win this. There we go. All right. So we have lost our washer, but that's okay. I'm going to very slowly slide that in there. Here we go. Good. You can't see this on camera, but what I'm doing is I'm using the dropper here to put a little tiny bit of lube up on the washer here. Although I just as easily could have lubed the blade. Now here's a little dexterity trick. Trying to slide a blade between these two washers without the washers moving. And I have failed. Quite thoroughly. There we go. So I got the washers roughly in position now. Now I need to put the pivot on. So I'm going to get this washer even more roughly in position using my little oiler here. And there we go. Now I am just desperately attempting to pop this guy through. There we go. I'm trying to apply pressure with my other finger here. There we go. That's one little pop through. Hey! Okay. So, problem almost solved. The pivot is through, but the issue is this washer is a little too high. So what I'm going to try and do is pop the pivot back down slightly so I can slide the washer over it. Oh, this is a dangerous game I play here. Because I don't want to slide the pivot too far out. There we go. Hey! Would you look at that? Okay, now just move the washer until I can pop this the rest of the way over. I gotta move the axis lock. Oh, come on, you little bugger. This, my friends, is a deeply fiddly process. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pop in the back spacer and a couple of these screws to sort of stabilize the entire affair here. There we go. That's one of them. I'm going to go ahead and pop the second one in. God, is it humid today. Oh. Okay. So I'm hoping that little bit of extra stabilization in the back there is going to allow me to take the relevant torque off of this washer, such that with popping the... There we go! Hey, I did it. And we are almost freaking home free, he says cautiously. Because, yeah, when there's a Benchmade, there's a way. Okay. Oh, so now at this point, all we really got to do is screw everything back together. Because I am sending this to a buddy who's probably not going to be taking it apart anytime soon, I'm going to go ahead and use some Loctite here. Go ahead and dab some on the inside of that. On the inside of that. On the inside of your main pivot hole here. And on the inside of your stop pin there. Whoa, a little much Loctite, but that's okay. Step one, I'm just going to lock in the pivot, and the reason I'm doing that first is just because I've got the driver available. And I really, really don't want this thing coming apart in the pivot area. That whole area is pivotal to the whole affair. Huh? Huh? Yeah, that was bad. Okay. Good. Pivot's in for now. I'll get it better later on. And of course my bit is stuck in there. So, Leatherman out. That back in there. Take this guy. Blow the sweat off of my glasses. Yeah. Oh, Michigan, you're freaking killing me here. Just gonna pop in these screws here. And this guy goes right here for the stop pin. Okay, so the knife itself is now reassembled. That said, I want to do some tuning with it. And in order for me to do tuning, let's see here, this will hang. Yeah. Go ahead and mount the clip. Not that you need the clip on there to do tuning, but I just know how to manipulate the knife a little better with the clip, and so it'll make the testing process of the tuning process a little tiny bit easier here. Okay. So, one good sign initially is that the blade centering is still there. When I started this, and in fact when I picked this guy up from the store, I made very sure to find one with good blade centering, and indeed this one appears to have it. So right now I'm just going to work the action back and forth a little tiny bit here, make sure everything looks okay, and gets me a good baseline. Actually, no blade play right now, so that means I can actually dial back the pivot a little tiny bit. Get it spinning a little freelier. Freelier, huh? That's a new word. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Ah, damn. That's nice. So, that's that. The one last tweak I'm going to make, and one I recommend you do to most access lock knives, particularly the ones with Benchmade, is that you put a little bit of heavier oil. I'm using 85 weight nano, but you could use frog lube, whatever, on top of your blade tang where the access lock meets. And what that basically does is it eliminates Not only does it make the knife a little smoother as it rides onto the rides along the blade tang there, but it also reduces the possibility of vertical blade play because this guy can slide up as far as it needs to. So that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, and indeed no vertical blade play whatsoever. Finally, I'm going to put just a tiny dip of nano oil right at the edge of the axis lock. Come on. There we go. And that's just to make sure it slides nice and pretty along there. Beautiful. And at this point, the knife is ready. I hope this has been interesting. Hey, sorry it took me so damn long, but unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast with an axis lock. If I did them every damn day, I would be in a much better position. But, oh boy, it's just a festival of little fiddly bits that need to stack together and line up, and it's the kind of thing that really makes me appreciate some other knife designs that are really just a lot simpler to put back together. Because, oh man, it's got to be easier than this. But anyways, this is your Benchmade Shinola Valet. I think they call it Shinola, but hey, whatever. And hope this has been interesting to you. And if you get a chance and you get one that's good, pick one of these guys up. They are really, really nice. And have a nice day.